Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Iskia, and I am the Facilities Coordinator for the Redmond Reactor Space. Before we get started, we've got a few things to go over. If you could please take a moment and read our Code of Conduct. Basically, we are seeking to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We do encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Useful links are going to be shared throughout the chat, and this session will be recorded and will be available on demand in 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. That brings us to today's session. It should run approximately 1 hour with time for questions throughout. So with that said, I will now turn it over to our speakers, and they will introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Matt Calder. I'm on the America's Azure team. And thanks for joining us. This is the first of a series. We're going to be doing these on the third Friday of the month. And as the title says, it's GitHub Copilot tips from the field. The idea is to have Microsoft experts, developers, talking to other developers in the community. So we're grateful to the Reactor for providing the space for this and the ability to connect with you all. Our main presenter today, Jason Tiedt, is a cloud solution architect, works with some of our really big retail customers, and he's going to spend most of his time on deep dive demos. We've also got Eduardo Botcher on chat to answer questions, and feel free to reach out to us directly. We'll put this link into the chat later on, but msdev at Microsoft.com is where you can reach us. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jason to show us some cool stuff.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Tiedt, Cloud Solutions Architect at Microsoft. I've been driving a lot of GitHub initiatives with our customers in the forms of demos, trainings, office hours, implementations, and now we're adding webinars. So like Matt was saying, we're planning on doing these productions kind of on a monthly basis to showcase some of the latest features coming to GitHub in a more hands-on fashion. So we kind of want to show the cool stuff here. We're going to try and avoid the slides as much as possible and just be able to showcase some of the latest features that you might not be aware of. So we can get started here, though. We got a couple of slides here. I've tried to trim it down a little bit to about 10 of them. The goal is going to be to get just a baseline of some information on Copilot if you don't have much background there, if you're not aware of some of the details behind it, and then getting to the demos where we're going to take some time and talk about some of those features in the moment as we're kind of using them as well. Excuse me. So I'm sure we've all heard the hype around AI tools in general that have been going around lately. You probably heard the name of Copilot in a lot of other contexts, such as Microsoft 365, where you can use AI within Outlook, Excel, even Teams, Bing Copilot, Power Platform Copilot. There's a huge ecosystem for Microsoft AI tools currently, and even more coming in the near future. To make sure we're all in the right spot, we're going to be working with Copilot on GitHub today. So this is your pair programmer tool. That is going to be what your development teams are using, for starting out with things as simple as day-to-day development tasks and throughout the software development lifecycle. So if I get going on too much of a roll, though, get moving too quickly, give a shout out in the chat. My colleagues are paying attention. They can help out with questions, and they can let me know to take a deeper dive if anyone's asking to get some more information on a topic before we get too far ahead of ourselves. And for the sake of the webinar recording, if we need to, we'll go a little bit over time just to make sure to get a good stopping point, but I want to make sure to respect everyone's time as much as possible in the hour. So I'll try and keep us moving as much as possible without missing out on too much of the fun stuff. All right, let's get through some of these slides here. So today's session, again, is meant to show as much hands-on coding as possible instead of discussing the slides in details. But we're going to get kind of a high-level look of the goals of Copilot and a quick kind of look at what's going on with that AI model behind the scenes here. This is meant to be fundamentals for this session. We're going to be touching on a lot of different scenarios, and in future sessions, we'll be planning to take deeper dives in terms of scenario complexity and new features, such as the coming GitHub Copilot Enterprise License tier. We'll discuss a little bit more about that towards the end. That's going to be in release at the end of February, and it's going to be very cool. But everything we talk about today is what you have available to you with the Copilot business license. So just keep that in mind. And we'll have some contact information towards the end as well. All right. So let me back up there. So the goal of GitHub Copilot is to take the next step in developer tooling. So Copilot is meant to be your expert pair programmer. It's going to be the idea that you have an expert looking over your shoulder, waiting for you to need them. So you are the pilots. Copilot is the co-pilot helping you out. What we want to see within your dev teams is an increase in developer productivity, whether that's going to be in the form of being able to offload some of the mental load of repetitive or boilerplate code, or using Copilot to quickly solve problems and find solutions, to situations you normally would find a peer for, or go off to search the web for answers. Instead, you've got this really smart tool all within your IDE. You don't have to be switching context, and you'll really be able to get a good proficiency on getting really good answers as you get a little bit more practice with Copilots and generating your prompts. So the idea here is talking about what advantages we want you to see. Your productivity for your developers kind of wraps into accelerate innovation. If you kind of offload some of these tasks with Copilot or make them easier, you're going to have more time to think about higher level stuff, the design of your projects, the architecture, some more important things that will really improve the overall structure of your systems and your projects. So we just want to be able to empower your developers. Quick little look before we do jump in. This is what we're going to be seeing in the demos, but this is what you'll be seeing if you're not familiar with it. These are going to be the suggestions. You can see kind of a cutoff screenshot off to the right here. The highlighted code is the idea of what the response is being given from Copilot. You can see we've got some comment blocks above it asking to determine whether the sentiment of something and use a web service. And it's finishing off our method for us, whether something is positive, it looks like for us. The goal here, though, again, this is the inline programmer. We're going to be showcasing both that inline using these comment blocks within the IDE as well as chat. So the latest and greatest, being able to use that ChatGPT natural language model within this Copilot tool, being able to have a much more natural interaction with this pair programmer peer that you're working with here. This is the only slide with some of these fun stats on it, but with all of our studies, we just found a lot of improvements for our developers using Copilot. So I won't read through them. I'll leave that for you guys, but just some good ones to touch on. 88% have faster completion of their tasks. 87% exert less mental effort on repetitive tasks. The idea, again, here is we're just empowering you with a new tool, and it's a really cool tool. It's a really powerful tool, and not everyone's aware of the extent that you can use it. And that's the goal for today, is to really show how much further it can go than you might be aware, and get a little bit more interest around getting your teams up to speed with Copilot here. Common question, of course, where can you use Copilot? Copilot is, first of all, going to live within your IDE. So these are going to be the IDEs that you have the extension in. It's not something purely within a GitHub account. It's within the IDE. The license is assigned to your GitHub account, and the IDE extension that checks to make sure you have it to approve whether or not you can use Copilot. But beyond that, you can have your code base hosted in Azure, wherever you want, as long as you're pulling it into that local IDE and using the Copilot extension there, you're able to use Copilot to its full extent. As it stands, though, we do have our Big 5 editors here available for your use. A little bit deeper look at what's going on. So another screenshots of some code that's going on the right-hand side. And the thing we kind of want to focus on is what's going back and forth over the network. So we've got our context, which you may have heard mentioned for Copilot and for the AI tools. What we're talking about here is what is coming from your project that Copilot can use to improve the suggestion. So in the case of that screenshot, we've got those 3 other tabs open out of the total 4. And those tabs are what are going to be used for context. What's going to be important for that suggestion? You can imagine things such as the objects you might be referencing. You want to make sure you're aware of what properties you have available to you, what methods are existing, across your project that you might need to use for whatever you're asking. This is going to make more sense within the demo. But the idea here, though, is what is going across the network is that context, just that baseline information about your code, what's going to be useful for the suggestion to make it tailored for you. We don't want you having to go in and change little parts of the suggestion. If they spelled the method wrong, if they're not using the correct properties, we want to have that as accurate as possible. We want to make sure that you can review it, make sure it's accurate. Of course, you are the developer. Copilot is the co-pilot, and you're the captain. But the goal then is that you can just simply hit enter or tab and accept the suggestion without having to go through and adjust it bit by bit. A quick question that we usually get here is what of your data is being sent across to the AI models. So the business license, for what it's worth, that is a major protection that you have. None of your IP is being used for training the model. None of it is being sent and stored over the network. It's purely being used for this context to generate a good suggestion for you, basically living in memory, and then it is being not stored. It's being removed then and waiting for the next prompt that's coming for you. So you do have that security around you and that protection around your IP, and making sure other customers aren't accidentally getting your code as a suggestion for them. And a quick look at these licenses. Again, we're going to talk about that Copilot Enterprise one towards the end, since that one is getting released at the end of the month here. But the idea is you do have different options. Copilot Business, for what it's worth, is not going anywhere. Everything we see here is going to be continued to be expanded on. It's not that it's going to be sunset or anything in the future. And of course, in the near future, there are even more enhancements coming for the business tier. But that's one we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be able to see a lot of cool features there and talk about the main difference between business and enterprise. And it's important to talk about administration too. So some of the controls that you have as an administrator within the GitHub account, you can obviously control who is assigned a Copilot license. You want to make sure you give it to the people who need it, not the people who don't need it. So you have control there, as well as some options around the control of the suggestions. So one big setting is with the public code matching. If you have some concern that some of those suggestions are going to accidentally match someone else's code out there, if you have a corporate policy where you just want to make sure you're not accidentally copying someone's code, or people might think you're accidentally copying someone's code, you basically have a checkbox to say filter those out. If that 150 chunk of characters matches some public code out there, it's just not going to suggest it to you, so you can't use it, and you can avoid that potential mishap. It's going to try and give you a different suggestion to make sure that you still get something back. You're not just getting a constant filter. But the goal, though, is that you're not being given something that you might feel at risk for. We have our software development lifecycle here. This slide is actually slightly dated, so we're actually more closer to the left-hand side with the GitHub Copilot Tomorrow, and even some of the further ones to the left of the GitHub Copilot Tomorrow, with refactoring code, reviewing code, documentation. Almost everything that we see here is available or is going to be available towards the end of the month with some of the new releases. So just as an example, the AI pull requests, being able to use Copilot within the pull review process, being able to help understand what's going on with the code as a reviewer, make sure you're getting good reviews, making sure you're not accidentally passing code that you shouldn't, or understanding why certain tests might be failing. That's something that's going to be released at the end of the month here, I believe maybe even the 22nd of February. Part of that big release around that enterprise license as well. But we're going to play around with documentation, refactoring code, unit testing, code errors, debugging. There's a ton of potential for what you can be using Copilot for. And of course, we can't get to all of it today, but we're going to try and showcase as much as possible to kind of see what we can do. All right, we are through the slides. Let's jump into our first part of the demo. Let me check the chat. Make sure we don't have any questions. Looks good. Okay, so before we get started, I do want to show what is going on within the IDE. Are we sharing this right one? Sorry, let me check to make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, all right, we're good. So within our IDE, we do have our extensions. I'm going to go ahead and show we've got our Copilot extension and our Copilot chat extension. The Copilot license, so that business license, covers both of them. They're just separate extensions because the chat was released more recently and they haven't been wrapped into one extension yet. But you do get access to both of them with that one license for you. The chat window, comes up on the side here. Go ahead and refresh that. You'll be able to interact with that natural language processing as well as within the actual project itself. So whether you're commenting with your inline, whether you're trying to ask it to complete things with your comment blocks or just the autocomplete as you're in the middle of typing a line of code, Copilot will also be trying to help you out there. We're going to see a little bit of all of that that we're going to be working with today. I do like to have our scenarios a little bit more real world. So the idea is with this project, we are approaching it as a developer who has been tasked to enhance what is already here. We basically have a project, looks like it is a contact, potentially keeping track of certain contacts, certain information behind them. We've got names, emails, phone numbers. This is something that you might see in your day-to-day actual development process. You can see I'm keeping an eye on which tabs I've opened to make sure the ones that I need are available. For example, the contact object, making sure that we know what is available to us within our user that is using that contact object as we're adding validation here for that saved contact and adding those new endpoints. So part of our task as that developer, adding validation to the existing save contact method, and then adding new endpoints such as getting all contacts, deleting contact by ID, getting contact by email, and we'll just be playing around with adding some new ones there. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, adding our unit tests. So it's been a very popular feature of Copilot to be able to add unit tests very quickly and very easily. So we'll be sure to add our unit tests for the endpoints that we are adding in our contact controller here. All right, to get started for us, we're going to add some validation. I'm going to start us out with the inline. So I'm going to have our comment blocks with us. First, I'm just going to do a basic comment and ask it to add validation, check if email exists already. Basically, we don't want duplicate users being saved. Go ahead and let you think about it. There we go. Sometimes it just needs a little push to get started. You can see the gray text. This is the suggestion. When doing the inline, you do have the ability to cycle through multiple suggestions. If you don't like the first one, you don't have to accept it. If you don't like the two here that's offering us, there are certain hotkeys to help you out. So just as an example, Control and Enter. That's going to open the top 10 suggestions. In this case, our prompt is pretty basic, so we're not going to get too much variety here. But you are able to get quite a few suggestions as you get to more complex tasks to be able to complete what you're working on there. For our sake, though, I'm going to take what we were given. So I'm going to hit Tab. I'm going to accept it. We can take a look at what we were given as a suggestion here. So we asked it to, let me move my mouse. We asked it to add validation to check if email exists already, basically making sure we're not adding a duplicate user to the system. Since we have our contact repository open, it knows we have our find by email that we have available to us. With our user, with our contact object open, it knows we have access to get email properties for our getters there. And then it knows that from the natural language, the basic English ask of add that validation, it knows how to do that. It knows to check for null. It knows for our response types, and it gives us a response string as well with email already exists. Understanding what we're doing, understanding how the best practices around it work, and being able to use that context to give us a very quick answer right away.
Hi, Jason. Sorry to interrupt you. We've got a couple requests from the audience. If we could zoom in just a tad.
Oh, yes. Let me zoom in. Is that better?
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, let me know if you need a little bit more. We'll just deal with smaller space here. All right, one more quick validation I'm going to add as well. We're going to check for add validation to check phone format is in text. And this is a fun one. So I'm going to accept it again, simply because it's fairly basic and we got a good response here. This is a fun one, though, because you can see that it used regex. So everyone's favorite regex here to confirm that the phone number format is correct. I didn't even ask it to specifically use regex. It just knows that's going to be the best process to solve the prompt for checking the formats of that phone number. So we can see checking for the 3 digits, and 4 with our dashes, and then again with a response status in our string telling us that the phone format is invalid. Excuse me. So, regex, usually you go out, you go search for how to best do that, what kind of string you would need to best achieve what you were looking for. But again, you're all within the IDE here. You didn't have to go anywhere. You didn't even have to ask how to use it. So maybe you weren't even necessarily aware. This is where, as a new developer, this might be helpful. If you weren't aware that would be the best way to go about confirming a format, in this case, Copilot knows. It knows what's going on for you. It knows how to help you out and get that done. I'm going to quick switch over to our chat box. I want to be able to show both of them before we really get moving here. So I'm going to remove those. I'm going to ask it to add validation to say contact for email already exists and the phone number is. I'm just condensing those 2 separate comment blocks into one ask within our chat. Let me adjust my screen here. So we got a similar response. Important thing to point out here. So chat's working a little bit differently than the inline. If we're reading the explanation, it's assuming something. So it actually isn't quite seeing what we are seeing. It's not using this file as context yet. Number of ways to work around this. We can simply highlight if we want the whole save contact method. We can ask again and it'll have that context. Or if we want to be especially explicit, and this is really useful because sometimes you want to make sure very specific files are being used, you can select the specific file to provide to Copilot. So now it's going to specifically see contact controller when it is processing our prompt to add that validation. So I'm going to run it again. This time it sees our save contact instead of assuming. And I will pull this over so we can read this a bit better. And we get something similar here. So looks like we didn't have pattern. We can, of course, go back and ask, don't use pattern for phone number. This is a really good chance to showcase the history of the chat box. So if you're doing the comments individually, obviously you can't really go back and ask it to fix something unless you go and change the prompt itself. With chat, you can refer to previous prompts, previous responses from chat in a much more natural language way. So this is that really key part coming from ChatGPT being integrated here. I can just refer to, don't use pattern for phone number, and it knows what I'm talking about. It's able to understand I'm talking about a previous response where it's using this, and it's able to give us a new response, a new answer that is updated for us, how we were asking it to be done. That over. And again, one more good thing to point out, since I was moving a little bit quickly there, I forgot to make sure it had the contact object for it. So if we did go back, we can then further use our contact object. The phone properties. And now we can see that we are using the correct property. So with a little adjustments, a couple of these were done on purpose to make sure to showcase different parts of Copilot. This is also where you can see using our Copilot and the prompts that you're generating is a bit of an art form, understanding how to best work with Copilots and get the best responses that you might be looking for. Key things, though, I wanted to highlight with this validation part, having the context being used, the importance of it. We saw when it was using the context, we got responses that we were looking for immediately. When we weren't using it, Copilot did its best. It tried to predict what we might have. It tried to use something that it thinks we might create down the line. It doesn't just tell you, I don't have access to the context. It still tries to help you out, but it wasn't quite what we needed. We did have to go back and adjust things. We could have done it within the code itself. I chose to go back and adjust the prompt and ask chat to do it again, but we still got there. If I had done it with the context from the beginning with our prompt updates, we would have had the suggestion immediately and been good to go. All right, let's go into our new endpoint. So using what we learned, I'm going to show a new part. With the comments, previously we did one line of comments. This is where it starts getting a lot more interesting. So a lot of people love the chat box, being able to use ChatGPT, having the history of the chat with you and being able to have that back and forth. It's a very smooth process. It works really well. A lot of people love that. The inline, though, there's a lot of really cool parts to the inline pair programmer to keep in mind. So a big one is using our comment blocks, where you can put in a lot of information that you might be wanting to be used for the prompts. To help that make sense, I'm going to go ahead and do this comment block here. I'm going to ask it to create all the endpoints from within one comment block here. So I'm going to say create endpoints. Get all contacts. Get contact by ID. Sometimes it'll actually offer prompts for you. So it kind of saw what I was doing. It understands these endpoints with the contacts. We'll have a common pattern to them. What is a common endpoint that you might use? Getting contact by ID. So it actually gave me this get contact by ID as a suggestion, which actually was what I was looking for. And actually delete by contact ID, also what I was looking for. So the suggestion for the prompts is also helping us out to make sure that we're using Copilot to its best potential. So I'm able to condense all of those endpoints into one ask within our comment block here, and we're able to allow Copilot to use it to give us our prompts here, or our suggestions, I should say. Sometimes it does just need a little bit. Sometimes we can go ahead and get the suggestions for us. Get all contacts. There we go. Contact by ID. Just going to accept these without looking at them just so we can keep us moving though. All right, so we got all three responses right away with that one comment block header. So get all contacts, contact by ID, and delete contact by ID actually continued with our null check. And it gave us our responses for errors as well as successes that we were looking for within our endpoints. So, if I wasn't sitting here talking, or if I was using our chat window, this would have been less than a minute to do. It would have taken longer just to make sure to glance over what's being used to make sure everything is correct. I'm the captain, making sure the Copilot is doing things correctly. We get a very similar response coming from the chat window as well. So both are going to be successful. I do find the comment header block a little underrated because hopefully you're giving these comment blocks already as part of your code, making sure you're documenting things correctly. So if you're already putting them in, Copilot's going to take what you're already putting in there and expand on it to make sure that you are using everything that you need, everything that you have available to you within your files. I'm going to expand on that a little bit more here. I'm going to go back. When it comes to our documentation, I'm going to refresh my screen there. When it comes to documenting our files, so we already see a lot of comments here from these suggestions we got from Copilot. It was already including some comments here. but some really useful things, especially when it comes to our APIs, getting some better documentation to put somewhere else. So let's go ahead and have it create a Swagger file for the endpoints to give it the file that it needs for contact controller. We are able to get that immediately. So got our Swagger file. This is really nice if you want to turn around, you've done a bunch of coding all day, you've got a really nice API generated, and you want to have this documentation. You can just have Copilot do it for you. Or we can turn it around. So we can do it from the other direction. If we wanted to use a Swagger file for implementing different things. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use this. I'm going to pretend that maybe we got this from some documentation online, something we're trying to integrate with. And we want to generate our delete by ID mapping. So we can go to Copilot. I'm going to clear our history so we know that we are using our other file. Ask it to use file, our Swagger, I assume. That's one. Didn't save it with a good name, unfortunately, but that's okay. Creates, deletes by ID endpoint. Flipping it around, basically having that documentation given to us from some source, taking that Swagger file, pulling it into our context, we are asking Copilot to use it for us. And it is using, sometimes gets a little confused. It just gave us back our a Swagger section for us. Endpoints to be defined. We already did that. Did I delete the right one? I did. Go ahead and give it another shot here. Endpoint is already defined currently as a get method. Well, let's go see. Okay. So we did find a little issue. Fix the deletes. I'm going to put this in first and we can explain what's going on. Fix the deletes contact by ID. So give us the delete contact by ID. Should be the delete. So we went back again. So this is really where that natural language model comes into play here. I'm able to go back and ask it, just fix that delete contact by ID. It should not be get. This is kind of vague and poorly with poor grammar there, but it understands what I'm asking it to do. It understands that I'm saying that that is wrong. I want you to switch it up to what it should be using our delete side. So I could ask it to specifically do it in the code. I'm going to update our Swagger file, though, and then have it use it. I want to be able to showcase it. And indented incorrectly. That's fine. This is where the art form comes into play, making sure you can get the response that you want. Give me the Java endpoints for deletes contact by ID. There we go. That's looking a bit better for us. I did not give it the contact object. That's why it's going to be a little bit off, so I won't copy it over immediately. But the goal is the same. So using that Swagger file, we were able to generate the endpoint that we're looking for. Sometimes you have to be a little more explicit than you'd expect, asking it specifically for using Java for it instead of just giving us back the Swagger file. And that's all fine. The goal, though, is to showcase the capabilities here. When it comes to how you're using Copilot, that's where the art form comes into play. Whether you have that instinct of how explicit to be, or just being able to go back quickly and do it correctly the first time with all the files that you need. Go ahead and give it the workspace flag. let me get rid of that second one. The endpoint Java for greet contact ID. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing another way to work with Copilot, that at workspace, basically giving it the full context that we have available. Instead of being explicit with a file, giving it the full workspace and letting it decide what is going to be relevant. The goal here, though, is to make sure that it uses the properties from our contact objects and what else is available within our contact repository classes so that we get the correct response. All right. And endpoint. This is how you know it's live, folks, because sometimes you have to wrestle with Copilot. Right. Delete mapping. Contact service we do not want. We want repository. Did not use that, though, for some strange reason. Delete by ID. All right, so I can go back. I can give it the context, specifically with the contact repository. That's what I was mentioning, forcing it to use a specific file. For the sake of time, though, I'm going to keep us moving. I have all confidence we would get that correctly fixed down the line. But for the sake of our demo, we're going to keep moving with the unit test, showing some other parts to make sure we can get to the other ones. I do have other demos I want to make sure to show, especially how easy our unit tests are. So again, I was just going to go back and force it to use a specific file to make sure the prompt is using the correct context. A little bit of back and forth, just making sure Copilot's using it correctly. But again, we're going to keep moving for the sake of our time. Create endpoints for, sorry about that, create tests. These are unit tests. Create unit tests for our new endpoints in contact controller. All right, so we have our contact ID found. We have our tests here. I'm going to pull these over so we can read these a bit better. Let's get all contacts. Cannot be resolved. Why is that? I must have broken something previously. Just make sure status is good. Contacts. Let me zoom a bit here. Just want to make sure. This is a good chance to show Copilot helping us out. So you can have it fix using Copilot, explain using Copilot, basically what's going on here, why am I getting these errors? This is a good chance to let it help us out. All right, and it looks like I must have just messed up the formatting previously, potentially with a bracket. That's fine. Endpoints are there. Test. This is a great example of user error on our end, contact controller. Repository. Strange. Why are we not using it previously? Let's go ahead and reset. And let's see if the inline version is going to work better for us. I don't know why I didn't provide that instantiation there. Let me go ahead and use our comment block. And we want just to clean that up for our eyes, and we will help my Copilots. What's here? Not needing to use that, using our Spring Boot framework this time for our test framework. And this is where the art form of Copilot comes into play. Which one is going to be better in which scenario? So I went back. Chat seemed like it was having some trouble understanding what I wanted from it. It's trying to use things I did not have available within the integration test Java file here. So I used the comment header. So goal here, just go back. Here you can highlight exactly what you want. I like to kind of showcase, again, those comment header blocks being especially useful. You probably have something similar already. You can go through and you can add explicitly what unit tests you want, as well as something a little bit more broad. So I wanted to showcase check all for badly formatted data. It's not very specific, kind of broad. I'm letting Copilot decide what I mean by badly formatted data and what scenarios. We can see within our test, though, we have what we need. So in this case, we did get all contacts, get contact by email, save contact with existing email, and I bet bad phone number format. So I let it do one more. This time it was checking for a bad phone format. So I didn't give it that prompt, that explicit prompt. Copilot used that vague ask that I used, check all for badly formatted data, and it interpreted it as a bad phone format, and it generated that for us already. I can let it keep going if I want. It will come up with more tests for us. It's going to be trying to be as helpful as possible, trying to make sure it has our best practices around what unit tests. This is a great example, too, to show within our chat window. What are some more unit tests to use to create file controller? Instead of telling it what I want, I'm going to ask it, what are some of these best practices? So Copilot has been trained on billions of lines of open source code. It has used that code to understand what best practices are. I'm sure there are plenty of contact objects out there being used in different projects, and a ton of different unit tests have ever been created. So Copilot is using that knowledge to suggest some more unit tests for us. We won't dig too much further into it, just because I want to make sure we get to some other ones. But you can see how useful this can be. This is really good for new developers trying to understand how to best expand their coverage for the code base, or even for more experienced developers. If you just didn't want to deal with too many unit tests and you used Copilot to make it a lot smoother for you so you can get on to more development tasks as needed, you can kind of see how this is going to help make that process much more smooth. You saw a little bit where I was wrestling with Copilot there, just when it comes down to the context, when it gets confused on what it should be using within the suggestion itself, what objects and what different classes it should be using. Sometimes it helps to go back and try and fix your prompts. Sometimes it helps to just switch it up. I used the inline programmer then, and it gave us what we needed. I'm going to quick check our chat to make sure I don't have any questions waiting for me. All right, let's keep moving on. Another good one that we are going to show is with our security side of things. So I'm going to share my other screen for us. Let me get that shared here. So what we're looking at here, we're not going to be focusing on the code too much here. In this case, there's actually going to be a vulnerability that we're adding. This is going to be something that is reflected within the advanced security features of Azure, but we're going to be using Copilot to help us solve those problems here. So this project, this is looks like a warehouse project for us, or at least we're going to be enhancing that side of things. Without digging too much into it, we're going to focus on our new code that we're adding for our order repository. And we can stick here, that's fine. Basically, we're adding code to get orders for customers. Some of you may be able to tell what's going on already or what might be going wrong. This is the code that we're going to be checking in to use. So you can see we are using a SQL statement to get some orders based on what customer ID we are being passed. We're going to add one other spot just to make sure that we are correct, our checkout controller, and that's probably fine too. just where we are going to be adding, or actually using it, I should say. Again, for the sake of time, we are not going to go through the check-in process and letting it scan. I already have that done for us. So jumping back, sorry for the screen switches, but I just wanted to make sure we can see what's going on. I share my screen here for my developer, or my DevOps instance here. This is the project. Basically, all that I did those code updates. I checked it into the code. I merged it in. That kicked off a pipeline. This is where the advanced security comes in. This is running code scanning. So if you are implementing your security, the idea here is basically this is scanning for dependency issues, secret scanning, just code quality, code QL. You can configure, of course. And it was run automatically. After you check in code, after you go through pull review process, you can get your results. Within our advanced security, though, we can take a look at what's going on. So we checked in our code. As a security manager, you can come in here. You're looking, I have some issues with our code that we merged in. So dependency issues, looks like our secret, we got some critical issues there, and our code scanning itself. We just have a lot of issues going on here. Approaching this, as a single person, this can be pretty overwhelming. There's a lot to work on here. There's a lot to update. Event security is really helpful fixing things. Copilot can also make that a lot smoother. So this is the specific bit of code that we did add here. So we're going to go ahead and fix this. We have a SQL query built from user-controlled sources. Reading through this, basically, this is not the way to go about it. As a new developer, it would be very helpful to have Copilot here. We can specifically highlight this code. I can say Control-I, so I can focus there. What SQL risks are there with this code? We can see the code snippet you provided is vulnerable to SQL injection attacks. So as a new developer approaching this, this is going to help you understand what's going on. This is explaining the risks that are happening. I'm going to pop this over into chat for us, so it's a better view. And we can also ask it to help us fix it. Help us fix the SQL injection. Highlighted. Oh. And we can see it is giving us some answers for us. And we go ahead and add some imports. The goal here, though, we can you fix that up as needed. The goal, though, is to focus on how Copilot is helping us out here. So the advanced security is really helpful on the Azure side, but this applies to any sort of security features you're using. Basically, something's not working. You're not totally sure what's going on. Obviously, the editor can't really tell, but using Copilot, it's explaining what the risk is. You get your thought process behind it. You get the answer on how to fix things. And if we were developers, we could easily check this back in, kick off another scan, and see the results of it to fix what might be needed.
Oh, hey, Jason. We're getting some comments that you need to switch to the versus screen or VS screen.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That's the risk of having too many screens flying around. There we go. Let me reset that. We can run that back as needed. So taking the code, we know there's an issue here, and we can ask fix SQL injection risk with highlighted code. All right, so again, you get the thought process of Copilot behind the scenes. It gives an explanation on why there's a risk, on how you're fixing it. So again, this is what I was referring to, as a new developer, understanding the risk, understanding how it's being fixed. As a seasoned developer, you can just come in. If you already understand the risk is there, you can have Copilot come in and fix it for you and deal with the red squiggly lines as needed. But for the sake of our time, that's not the focus of what we're looking at here. But again, so that security side of things, it's not Azure specific. I was just using that as an example. Any sort of security systems you're using, when you're popping in there, seeing those, you can always use Copilot to help explain what's going on and give you that quick fix as well. So that's always a really cool feature to help out any sort of security risks there. And you can imagine too, when this is wrapped into the pull request process, for the pull reviewers, having this on hand too, having Copilot there to help you out is going to especially smooth out the process. Make sure you're not accidentally merging in breaking code for you. Sorry about the screen confusion there. I'll try and do a better job. All right.
Any chance we could get a little zoom, if possible, please?
Let's do another one. How's that? Don't need our terminal. Hopefully that helps out. Double check our chat. All right, looks good. All right, so we have a number of demos that we're already running a little short on time, so I apologize. I'll make sure we get to one more here. One of the cool ones for us, or that I really think about a lot, is with our automation side of things. So if you work with GitHub, if you work with Azure, and you work with pipelines or actions, you've probably seen a lot of YAML files. If not, this is still going to be especially helpful for you. And I'll do one last screen switch here, just to make sure we get to the right one. And why are you not letting me? There it is. Is that coming through on your end, Askia?
No. Oh, here it comes.
Okay, there we go. So for what it's worth, I was also planning on doing a SQL one, just kind of showcase you can have Copilot help you out with a ton of very complex SQL scripts. There are a lot of demos out there for that if you wanted to look that up, but basically you can absolutely have Copilot help you out with generating SQL scripts, especially very complicated ones. One that you don't see talked about a lot is with the YAML files. So the automation side of stuff, being able to use our Copilot, help us out there. I'm going to clean this up. And I wanted to be able to show for fixing. You can imagine if you're not that familiar with your YAML files, if you're not that familiar with GitHub Actions or Azure Pipelines, having Copilot there to ask more general things. What is wrong with this YAML? I'll try and keep this to 2 minutes or so we can do some quick Q&A at the end as well. Oh, and of course, I forgot my own rule. If it's 2, it can deal with your spelling and grammar mistakes. I have definitely put it through its paces, and it handles it just fine. So we'll go through too many of them. It has caught a number of issues, such as versioning, such as a token that is hard-coded should not be there. This is a fake token for what it's worth. But the idea, though, having Copilot be able to help you out on that front, being able to help fix stuff that you might not be able to catch. But more importantly, you can ask it to generate what you might need. So common one is going to be your deployment. So let's say create a GitHub action to build and deploy after a merge to main branch. I'm sure some ops people are enjoying this part. Right away, you get the framework of what you need. Obviously, you need to add in, your endpoints, your tokens, etc. But the goal here is, Copilot is giving you a lot of what you need. It's getting you that 90% of the way with this automation side stuff with the YAML files that you might not think Copilot can help you out with. one last part to the conversion. Just as an example here, this is a Azure pipeline file. Deploy, convert this Azure pipeline to GitHub action. So a lot of times we get a lot of customers looking for migrations to GitHub or vice versa, whatever you might be doing. Having Copilot here to help you out, because the two systems between pipelines and actions are going to be a little bit different. Copilot is there to help you out. Excuse me. And you're able to get that conversion right away. Help smooth out that migration, get that CI/CD automation up and running in your new environments right away. Goal here, highlighting using context for coding itself, getting information from Copilot, information about unit test best practices, how coding best practices would apply, using it to help convert code. So between different YAML systems, so the actions and pipelines, as well as just understanding what's going on. So commenting code with it, using comment blocks inline. There are just a ton of facets that Copilot is helping out with. There are even 3 more demos I didn't even have a chance to get to, so I apologize with that resting I had with Copilot earlier. But there is even more. And the goal, of course, is as we continue these programs that we'll be able to dive deeper into them and talk a little bit more behind the scenes and with more complex tasks. I do want to give some time for a Q&A here. Let me check our comments. Were there any outstanding comments that we had from when we were working? All right, sounds good. There was a question, can you pass in multiple files using the hashtag file? Yes, you can be specific if you want, 3 specific files instead of the whole workspace. Yes, you can pass in multiple files from that front. All right, can we switch back to the slides real quick? Just some quick contact information. If you did want to work with Microsoft to expand your teams with Copilot, we give some contact information. If you wanted to reach out to your account teams, or if you needed someone to contact, we do have an email there that you can reach out to. The Cloud Labs preview also gives you a chance to get hands-on and play around with Copilot yourself. Definitely encourage you to use that a little bit. And I want to just make sure to give those resources to anyone that is looking for them. Just making sure I got to all of our questions here. I know we're at time, so thank you everyone for attending. Looking forward to being able to smooth out some of the technical issues from our first session here for the future. Hoping to put these on monthly. Again, there's going to be expansions to GitHub Copilot and GitHub itself as much as possible. So in the future, we're going to be able to kind of talk about new ideas, new features, and new scenarios that you can be using here. All right, just want to check with my team. Was there anything that I missed on the comments? All right, looks like we are good. All right, well, thank you, everyone, and enjoy your Friday and your weekend.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason. We appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for attending. We have put the feedback request or the survey request up there. So we definitely would appreciate any feedback that you have. Definitely take everything into consideration. And once again, thank you, Jason and team. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next month. Thanks and have a great day.